Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to post-match almost medium rare, but we do have a main guest, so I suppose we can go by post-match raw. But I'll introduce him in a sec. I have two usual guests, Dave Horrocks, who will now be called Horrocks for the rest of this pod. How are you doing, Horrocks?
I'm very good, sir. How is yourself?
Relieved?
Yeah.
That's what I'll go with. Also, we have Lisa Marie with us. How are you doing, Lisa Marie?
Doing fine, Guy. Thank you. And I will also go in the relieved category.
Good stuff, good stuff. We also have Hendrick from the main pod. This feels like University Challenge. How are you doing, Hendrick?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
I'm good. Horrocks, I'll start with you because I spoke to Dave about this on his show on Two Footed. Obviously, Nottingham Forest means a lot to Liverpool fans for a variety of reasons. I don't want to get into the Hillsborough stuff too much. But you mentioned when we were sorting guests this would be an emotional occasion. How were you feeling before the game?
Yeah, it was a bit of a weird one leading up to it. Obviously, Hillsborough's never left our kind of our thoughts really because of everything that's happened since that fateful day. But it's just something weird when when it was clear we were going to play there, and first time we played them in the FA Cup, I just had a lot of memories flooding back from that day. Kind of remembered where I was. I missed the start of I missed the kickoff, but I remember being in town and hearing it on the radio, and like there was some trouble that they were talking about and stuff, and then going home and watching it on TV and stuff. So it was really weird. It was all flooding back, as if it was a couple of years ago or something. So it was kind of touched as well by the way Forest had kind of reserved those 97 seats. I thought that was a great touch by the club. But to be honest, leading up to the first few minutes before the match and like the atmosphere, and then certainly when it kicks off, all that went out the window. I was like, let's beat these fuckers. Forgot about all of that.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, it was nice because I don't really have a connection at Nottingham Forest, but it was nice to see a big club have a big occasion. I know they've played Arsenal pretty much every season in the FA Cup for some reason, but this felt like a bit bigger, or maybe just because I've actually paid attention this time. But Lisa Marie, I'll come to you then for our starting 11, which maybe went stronger than some people would have thought of, but I suppose it is an international break coming up. What did you make of the starting 11?
It was not exactly what I expected, but since it looked like we had a lot that weren't necessarily available, I mean, even on the bench, you do that first glance and you're kind of like, oh, and then you look at who the subs that are going to be there, and then you go, well, okay, that kind of makes sense. I think the one that probably maybe surprised me the most was Oxlade-Chamberlain, but not necessarily. Elliott playing up front surprised me a little bit, but I wasn't necessarily surprised to see him in the starting lineup. So, I mean, just again, we expected Gomez to play, or I did anyway, to play for Trent. So putting Konate and Van Dijk there in the back, and Tsimikas I think was expected for Robertson. Even though Robo wasn't even on the bench, so I guess he's ill now too. But yeah, it was mostly what I expected. It didn't surprise me. I kind of thought maybe he might start Hendo for Fabinho instead, but yeah, overall it didn't. I wasn't like really shocked and surprised.
Yeah, maybe a couple of things. I do agree on the Elliott one because we've only seen him in the one position so far. But maybe we'll get into that as the game goes along. But Hendrick, I'm going to have to get used to that. Hendrick, I'll come to you for the Forest starting 11. You've seen a bit more of them than most of us on the panel. The commentator was saying they usually play a back three with Spence as a wing back, which I know isn't from the Borough days as well. Anything surprise you out of their team?
Yeah, I was a bit surprised they went with a back four. They are nominally a back three team under Steve Cooper, so that did surprise me. Without Scott McKenna on the bench, I'm wondering if that's kind of the logic behind it. He didn't trust anyone else to step in instead of Scott McKenna, so they've gone with the back four. And to be fair, Jed Spence is very comfortable as a right back. Joe Worrell's probably happier in a back four than he is in the three. The other two are figure eight is a little bit soft, and that's kind of why a three suits him. Jack Colback just isn't a fullback. He's a midfielder who can play as a wing back, but it does sort of suit the rest of the players that they have. Like, it suits Yates and Garner to play as a double pivot. Zinkernagel's happier in that number 10 role, and Johnson and Lolly are more naturally wide players. When they play the 3-4-3, Johnson often plays on the right and plays it quite narrow and can get a little bit lost some games. Still a very young player, still developing, but he caused Gomez a few problems today. That was a bit of a surprise that they went back for. But I also think Steve Cooper's a very, very clever fella, and I think he'll have looked at the history of teams playing a back three against us, especially one who've got slower, wide centre backs like Joe Worrell, and he'll have thought, up against their pace, we could get properly opened up here. So back four made sense for that reason, and for the fact that without McKenna, you'd really be throwing in somebody who hasn't played a whole bunch this season.
No, that's a good point, because we used to pretty much tear open three at the back, and I think Scott McKenna's a big lad as well, who's obviously injured, but yeah, not the quickest back three possibly for them if they were to play it. But Hendrick, I'll stay with you. The game kind of started a bit strangely. We started quite well. Elliott had an offside opportunity off a Naby pass. Forest had a chance. I've noted down here our right-hand side was a bit sloppy, but it's probably the first time they've played together. I mean, Gomez is right back, Ox is a right centre midfielder, and Elliott's not played that position since he was at Blackburn. I mean, what was your thoughts on the start and our right-hand side being a tad sloppy?
Yeah, I didn't really like the Harvey Elliott selection in the front three. I don't think it's a position that suits him. I think if you're going to play Harvey in that kind of role, you've got to play a 4-2-3-1 rather than playing him right up as an inside forward. He just gets a little bit lost in the traffic there. And, especially when he's playing there, when Joe is playing as the right back, and as good as Joe is defensively, we know he's got limitations on the ball. So you're asking an awful lot of that right-sided midfielder. And there was moments where Ox played there and did things that looked quite good, and just the final ball didn't come off. But all in all, that right side was a bit clogged, whereas the left side looked a bit more fluid and there was a lot more movement with Costas, with Naby dropping in and picking the ball up and getting things moving. And then obviously Jota with his movement and pace, though obviously he didn't play very well today, but he got his goal, so we'll let him away.
We'll get to him.
We'll let him away with it. But yeah, no, the Harvey selection, I would have been happier seeing Harvey play on the right of the midfield three and Ox play on the right of the front three if he was going to pick that 11 players. I think that probably would have benefited both of them more, but it is what it is. It's one to mark down that's something that doesn't work. And at least the big thing is with Harvey especially, it's minutes in his legs. He missed so much of the season. We're at a very delicate point of the season where we can't really afford any passengers in any more games. So the likelihood of him getting a lot of league games while he's still trying to get his groove back is pretty low. This was the game to give Harvey an opportunity, and it worked. It worked because we won. If we had lost, then obviously it's a different conversation.
Yeah, that's a good point, and I'll come to you with that, Horrocks. I mean, Harvey's had a obviously very disrupted season, and since his injury, he came back, had a couple okay games, but maybe just, well, he's obviously very young, and the disruption won't have helped. But I mean, what would you make about that? Maybe his last start of the season, maybe. But we've seen recently maybe Jones overtake him, and Naby certainly cemented himself at least as the fourth centre mid, so maybe the least we see of Harvey, but good to get the minutes in his legs, as Dave says.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And I think they're obviously very different players, but I almost feel like it's the same conundrum as we had with Coutinho, where the temptation is to put him in the front three, but he's so much better coming in from the midfield in that deeper position. I didn't like it. But to be honest, with what happened with Elliot earlier this year, I just see everything as a bonus. I think it's for him, it's not about this season. It's all about just getting that sharpness back, contributing where he can. But it's all about ramping up for next season, I feel like. I don't know, with the league and the Champions League, I don't know how much of a role he's going to have. And I'd agree. I think having Ox maybe in the front three, I don't think he's great there either. But maybe that would have been a better way to change it around.
Yeah, it's a good part. I mean, I think direct backup for Mo is probably something we might have to address in the summer. But yeah, with the squad options that we had, it would have probably been one of them too, because we've seen Minamino. For instance, we played Cade Gordon over him in that position. I can't remember the league game, but it was around the Arsenal Cup tie, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. But Lisa Marie, I'll come to you for the next part of the games. I mean, this is kind of where the Jota stuff starts. Jota gets sent through, gets tackled by the defender because he can't be bothered shooting. Jota leaves a Gomez cross for some reason. Don't know why. Maybe one of the Nottingham Forest players shouted him. Then Forest have a couple chances. Fab has a chance from a low corner. And that's pretty much it before the Bobby chance, which we'll come back to specifically. But it was a bit of a back and forth game, but I think we certainly had the best of it, Lisa Marie.
I agree. I think we started off, with a good tempo. Fast start, high tempo is what I kind of written down in my notes for the start. And, so we looked up for it, but we did. We looked a little bit, I don't want to say unorganized, but I think it was just a culmination of all the changes. And as previously mentioned by one of the Daves, I think that, that down the right side, none of those players had played together kind of in that combination before. So I think it was a little bit of them just kind of getting their rhythm and their, and reading each other for the game. But yeah, poor Jota, I mean, bless his heart. I mean, he just couldn't hold on to the ball today. I don't know what the problem was. Well, it's not been just today. But I will say, we started at, and, we seem to be pressing pretty well, but there was a lot of just sort of miscued passes, not just Jota, but a few others as well. And you could really see, I think even I had made a note that the lack of rhythm from Ox and Harvey was kind of evident. I mean, not just with each other, but not having really played much in the last few weeks as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, rustiness is probably the worst thing for football, but our squad's pretty deep at the minute for once, so you can't really escape it for some players.
And I mean, it's been mentioned before. I mean, Ox really does seem to be a rhythm player, and he just when he is able to string a couple games together, you start seeing improvement in his play. But that hasn't been the case here lately. Again, because this is the great problem to have, is we do have the squad depth, and yeah. So he just didn't really seem to play into it well today.
Yeah, but we'll maybe come to a deeper discussion with him at the end of the first half, because I think I want to discuss a few things about Diogo. But before we get there, Hendrick, I'll come to you. Bobby, he still doesn't do one-on-ones unless it's against Arsenal, does he?
No, he doesn't. And that was a bit of a strange one, because he seemed to almost have a little bit too much time. I don't know if he thought he was offside or what, but he kept looking around himself as if he was waiting for a flag or whatever, and he didn't fully commit to the finish. You would have just liked to have seen him just put his foot through the ball and put it past the keeper and not be pricking about. I didn't think Bobby played well today at all. Mm-hmm. Dave Maddock is trying to claim he was man of the match, which is a very strange take for me. I thought Bobby, like the other two in the front three, were really poor. And I was actually surprised he stayed on when Klopp made the 4 subs. I thought Bobby would be one of the ones to go off. It's a funny thing. Like, there's just certain games Bobby plays, Bobby does well, and then he goes in for another game and he's just absolutely shocking. And today was just one of those games where nothing seemed to work from his touch didn't seem right. His passing was off. His pressing wasn't great. And obviously, as we saw in that chance, his finishing wasn't good either.
Yeah, we've got a couple shouts from the chat. I mean, about a few players maybe worth selling and some people buying. But Hendrick, I'll stay with you. I mean, Sandeep said sell Ox, in my opinion. Jake Lee said sell Minamino or Joe Gomez. A bit harsh on Gomez today, I think. Keep Bobby. We need Nkunku or Rafinha, which would be lovely. But these are the games where certain people need to impress. I think Gomez certainly, but he's not in his position. I thought he was mostly fine.
I thought Joe played well. I thought Joe played well. The only thing with Joe, and I've said this before, Gomez is 25 before the end of this season. And there will come a point where Joe Gomez needs to be playing every single week. Joe Gomez is the best English centre-back right now. And he's fourth choice at Liverpool. And the guy he's the backup to is Virgil van Dijk. People keep saying, but like Matip is 30, 31, and Matip and Gomez don't play the same position anymore. Gomez, when he plays centre-back, plays the left side. Kanate is the one who will take Joe Matip's position. Joe is behind Virgil. Virgil doesn't miss many games, and Virgil could have 5 or 6. When we see Thiago Silva still playing fairly well at 37, why wouldn't Virgil be able to do that at 35, 36, 37? There's no reason at all. With his physical ability and the way he reads the game. So Gomez has to be looking at it and thinking, there isn't a future here for me in the team. So the logic to sell Gomez would only be if he asks to go. And if he's happy to stay, great.
Yeah.
But if he asks to go, that's where you sell him. I think Ox should go. And it wouldn't surprise me if we don't see Ox again. Because he plays so infrequently. And he did not look at all happy coming off today. He seemed to be having a little bit of a strop. Yeah. And it wouldn't surprise me if come the summer, Ox asks to go. And Klopp will let him go. He's been a decent servant. He's played a role in success. But that big knee injury he had against Roma back in 2018 just derailed his career. And he's never looked the same player since. He had a run in the title-winning season where he scored some goals, but he can't string consistent games together. And I don't think that's going to be something. James says Joe Gomez has played RCB for almost all his Liverpool career. He has, because we had Sacco initially, who was a left-footed left-side centre-back, and then we had Virgil. And that's why Joe played on the right. But every game Joe has played at centre-back this season has been the left-sided role. He's not played right side once, which is the same thing in pre-season. Joe Gomez is Virgil's backup, and Kanate is Matip's backup. So when Matip is to be passed out, it will be by Kanate, the 21-year-old monster that we've spent a fortune on. That's the guy who takes that position. Joe Gomez is either the third choice right centre-back or the second choice left centre-back. Neither of them are good for him. So the idea that with Gomez, like, he's going to get in the team eventually. Yeah, if Virgil plays for 4 more years and then decides to go, Joe Gomez is 29. He's 29.
He's too
and as things stand, he's far too good to be that. And as things stand, like, he's already lost a bunch of seasons in his career. Just take a look at what Joe Gomez has done in his career. He joined us and he blew out his ACL that first season. He played 5 games in the league, 7 in all competitions, blew out his ACL, season over. The following season, he played 3 games, all in the FA Cup. Then he had 3 seasons where he played a lot. He broke his leg in that 18-19 season, but still managed 25 games. Last season, he played 12. This season, he's got 14, like 5 league appearances. I think if I'm not mistaken, he's under 100 minutes in the Premier League this season. And that's not going to change. Like, Virgil's going to play 35 league games a season. So Joe's going to stick around for 3. I could see him giving it 1 more year, but Joe Gomez is not going to be at Liverpool long term. He's too good. He's far too good. He is the best 4th choice centre-back anywhere on the planet. He's too good to be that. He needs to be first choice somewhere. And if you look up and down the league, outside of ourselves and City, he starts for basically everybody else. Everybody else. He starts for United, he starts for Arsenal, starts for Spurs, starts for West Ham. Like, he's that good. He starts for everybody, and he'll know that.
If sticks about, I think that'd be a good move for him at Spurs.
Yeah, Gomez would be great at Spurs. He'd be absolutely brilliant in that Spurs back three. He's the perfect fit for it. He's too good to sit on our bench. And he'll know it as well. Like, he could start right back for most of the teams in the league because he's really good there as well. Like, he's not great going forward, but he's solid enough going forward. He's brilliant defensively. Like, we saw some of his defensive actions today. So quick, so explosive. That was the big thing I took from Gomez today. That one instance where with his recovery speed, that's where you saw, like, he is back at full speed now. And that's a huge thing for him as well. So he knows now he can trust that leg. So he's not going to want to sit on the bench. He's too good.
Yeah, and Horrocks, I'll come to you. I mean, feel free to add anything on what Hendrick's mentioned there. Not saying... Yeah,
sorry,
you go.
I hope that Gomez doesn't go, because I completely agree with Dave there. I just think he's too good. I can't believe how few minutes he's had. You know, and if you look at last season, where basically all of our centre-backs were injured, you know, you end up with Gini and Henderson playing at the back there. It's just, everyone seems to have stayed fit this year, which is great, but it's just ended up with this bizarre anomaly where Gomez just hasn't played. Yeah, and so I don't know. Injuries are part of the game, aren't they? And it just so happens that this year we've been quite lucky at centre back. So I do hope that he sticks around, but I wouldn't begrudge him if he moved on as well, because, like I say, he's 25 now. I tell you where he'd make the biggest difference is United. I'd absolutely hate to see him go there, but if you look at the pace that they've got at the back, Gomez would transform that back line.
They'd still play him with Harry Maguire, so probably not.
Well, true, yeah. So, but yeah, so that's all I got to say to Gomez. Would really hate to see him go. Would love to see him get, you know, a good solid couple of seasons, because when him and Virgil were playing at the back, they just looked unbeatable, you know, for a while there. So yeah. So sorry, I was just adding that.
Isn't that Virgil and everybody though?
True.
Like, Virgil and everybody looks unbeatable. Virgil even made Dejan Lovren look like a, you know, competent centre back despite years of proof. Just on Joe, he's got 102 minutes in the Premier League this season. Yeah. 102 minutes. Now, Joe, like I said, he'll be 25 at the end of the season. In his career, he has played 12,300 minutes. Now, bear in mind, he made his debut for Charlton in the 14-15 season. Trent is 2 years younger than Joe. Trent has 19,000 minutes and didn't make his debut till when? 17, 18? Like 3 years later, and he's already got 7,000 minutes more. It just shows, like, with the injuries Joe has had, and then obviously just the quality that's ahead of him this season is just, it's mind-blowing that we have 4 centre-backs this good. Like, last year, we're watching Jordan Henderson frolic about like a cow in a field with no earthly idea what he's meant to be doing at centre-back because we were so stuck. And this year we've got 4 lads who literally start for basically every team in Europe. Every team in Europe would take Joe Gomez. Every team in Europe would take Konate. You know, you look at Bayern with the calamity they've had centre-back this year. They'd take both of those lads to start. Real Madrid would take Joe Gomez to start. Barca would take Joe Gomez to start. And the same thing through to the Premier League.
There, to be fair.
Bayern would be great for him. If they wanted to stick to a back three especially, he'd be brilliant. Because thing with Joe is, everyone thinks, you play him on the right. Joe could play the middle role in a back three with his reading of the game, with how quick he is covering for the other 2 centre-backs if they step on, how good he is on the ball. He's very, very comfortable carrying the ball into midfield as well. This that we see from Matip, this line-breaking dribbling, Joe was doing that for us 3 years ago, picking the ball up and carrying it into midfield.
He's a fantastic passer as well.
Really good passer. Really, really good passer. Both footed as well. Like, remember, Joe came to Liverpool, his first 5 games were left back. So Joe can play anywhere, but I think you put him in the middle of a back three and build the defence around him. I think he could be sensational with his calm head, his organisation, having learned from Virgil for the last 4 years. That if I was Spurs, I'd buy him and play him there. Play Romero to his right and have him in as the middle one. Because with his pace and recovery ability, when Romero does make that little mistake that he'll often make where he tries to jump a line on something, Gomez can just sweep up nice and comfortably. If I was Spurs, Joe Gomez would top my transfer targets for the summer.
And then just get someone to play the left side and they're pretty much sorted.
What about Newcastle?
Well, they're buying Neymar. So
I wouldn't do that to him, though. You're sending them... Like, you might as well send them to Iceland if you're send them that far. Like, you'd be waving goodbye to Guy. Like, you pass Norway, you can see Guy off the coast, give him a wave.
Did you not see the sunshine in the Borough game yesterday?
That's that cold winter sun, though. You just get that you get that all year round.
That's true.
They must have had the JCBs in early to clear the field of all the snow yesterday, did they?
They did.
The Borough game. Yeah, I thought so.
Oh dear. Horrocks, I'll come to you. I mean, not a similar debate, but maybe one for long-term fit. I mean, Jota, we've mentioned he scored, but he was awful. But that's kind of been the story, not this season, but certainly since he came back from injury. And I think some people were for the Jota signing, and I was personally a tad indifferent to it, because this is kind of the player I saw where he had an end product, but he wasn't always there. But in terms of a long-term fit, I can't see him being the one who replaces Mane or Mo as the wide forward. I know we've got, excuse me, I know we've got Diaz for the left now, but I feel like Jota only fits into that central role now.
I think the thing that I love about this squad is that it's not just one player for one position. You know, we've got genuine options, and I don't think Jota is, he's not a replacement for Mane, he's not a replacement for Mo. I just think he's different. I mean, I had no expectations for him. I thought he was all right at Wolves. All right being a bit of an understatement. I thought he was decent for Wolves, but then I didn't think he was going to be the player that he turned out to be. But just the last, since he's come back from his injury, he just hasn't quite looked the same. Now, it's ridiculous. He's the winning goal scorer today. But, he was a bit crap. The ball just was not sticking to him at all. And it was almost, for me, he was trying a bit too hard. He's like trying to throw himself into the ball and just not really doing the simple things well. Now, picking on him a little bit, probably, but I think a lot of players were doing that, especially in the first half, just not doing the simple things well. And I'm sure at some point we'll come on about the English commentary. Fucking Sam Matterface and Lee Dixon. It's just horrendous. And they're saying, oh yeah, these games, it's not about tactics. It's all about the passion. Oh, fuck's sake.
That's why you're a commentator.
Yeah. So yeah, that's it. It's the magic of the FA Cup, isn't it? But I do think the ref let a lot of things go that you wouldn't see let go in the Premier League. A lot of fouls that you would think were fouls. Elliott was taken out at one point. I thought he was nailed on yellow card that never happened.
To be fair, that might just be Craig Pawson, who is shit as a referee.
But how many of them aren't?
That's
the standard of English refereeing is horrendous. But yeah, Jota, I think he's just going through a bit of a bad patch. I think, again, he just needs a stretch where, he can work on his fitness, not just recover in between games. And I think that sharpness will come back. But yeah, I don't think, to your original question, he's not a replacement for Mane or Mo. He's just different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Lisa, I mean, same question to you. I mean, Jota, I'm not sure how much you've seen him at Wolves, but he's obviously been here a season and a half now, probably over a half. It's a weird one because we've had our front three for ages, and it seems to be developing. I'm not doubting Jota as a squad option but he's just so different to Bobby, who, well, as we said earlier, kind of struggled today as well. But it's just weird. Jota just seems very different to what our front three has been for these years.
Yes, I agree. He is in, and I think it's because, and I said this on a podcast before, I don't remember which one, but I feel like our front three last season had gotten a bit predictable in some ways. I mean, I think it, just because it had been there'd been such consistency with it being, Mane, Bobby, and Mo that, teams kind of knew what to expect from him. So I think Jada's a little bit of a wild card because, he plays sometimes on the left, he plays in the middle, and you just never really know where he's going to pop up. And he is a master at scoring those scruffy goals. So, I think in some ways that's kind of his strength is he's not, I guess his inconsistency is a bit of a strength because it's just, I don't think they can predict what he's going to do.
Yeah, one thing for certain is certainly deadly in the box. I mean, we can always work or develop stuff on the outside and build up play, but we have seen at times. I mean, he dribbled past the entire Arsenal team at times. But I mean, Hendrick, I'm sure you want to get in this day because I knew you were a fan of Jota well before we signed him. But it's an evolution of our front three. But Jota's, I'm not sure where he fits in. But do you think he'll always be that fourth man or?
I love him in that. I love him as that fourth attacker. Like, that's the thing. We, for so long, had three starters and then this enormous drop-off to anybody else.
Mm.
And when he arrived, he was basically a fourth starter for three positions. And I'd like to see him stay in that role. Like, I think Diaz is definitely the Mane replacement. As we refresh the squad, I'd like to see us go and get, an Nkunku type to bring in to be the Bobby, replacement, even while keeping Bobby beyond this season, because while he's at a contract in 2023 as well, I don't think he has much value on the transfer market. I think he's one of those kind of very specialized players that suits a certain way of playing, and not many clubs play with a Bobby type of player. So Jota, for me, if we went into next season with, say, Salah and Nkunku and Diaz as our front three, with Jota as the fourth who can start all across the line, so he'd get plenty of starts in the league, in the Champions League, and in the Cups. But if we're playing our best 11, maybe he's the one that sits out. And then he's an unbelievable weapon off the bench, because as we saw today, he can play really poorly, and you give him a half a chance and he scores. So I think that can be his role for us. And then, Bobby would become the fifth forward, Taki the sixth, and maybe Cade Gordon replaces Divock as the seventh forward next year. I think if Sadio goes this summer, you bring in Nkunku, he starts in between Mo and Diaz. Jota is the fourth one, Bobby the fifth, and then, Taki the sixth, Gordon the seventh. Taki might leave the following summer, Gordon can step up one, and maybe then one of the other youngsters is able to rise up into that seventh role who, he's on the bench in the cup games and that type of thing. I think it's a good position to be in, but for me, with Jota, there's too many inconsistencies in his game to mark him down as he should start every single game. His touch can desert him for entire games. His link-up play can desert him for entire games. His dribbling just disappears sometimes. One game, he'll dribble past 4 or 5 people. He'll play some great passes. The next game, he just can't find a teammate. And today was one of those games. Everything he tried went wrong, but he still scored a goal. And that's what makes him so valuable to us.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost like a perfect upgrade on Origi, what he provided, but can provide much more as a starter. So yeah, I agree with that. But that was it for the first half, which we were the better team, but Forest looked dangerous. And Lisa, I'll come to you. The second half starts with us pissing about at the back and trying to let Forest score a goal.
Yes, accurate. Absolutely accurate. Yeah, I don't know what happened there, but they did not come out with the same mindset that they started the first half. Not on it at all. And This is about the time my cat decided to come curl up in my lap, so I couldn't take notes. So I'm trying to remember. Yeah, but no,
it's the best excuse I've ever heard. I like it.
She doesn't do it often, so I have to take advantage. So yeah, but no, I mean, I've got Jota took a shot, but it didn't have any, anything really behind it and everything else. But no, we just didn't come out on it. And I mean, I was watching in Discord, everyone's like, okay, time to make some changes. Let's make some changes. We need to make some changes. And that was absolutely what I was, hoping for was, this is not working and we need to change it up here.
Yeah, we'll certainly talk about the subs in a sec because it did change the tide of the game for good and bad, to be fair, but we'll come with that. Yeah, Horrocks, I'll come to you. We have a couple chances before the subs. I mean, Jota has a weak shot after good work from Naby and Bobby. Ox has a deflected shot. Then we have that Gomez defending incident that Dave mentioned earlier. The start of the second half, I should say, was a bit back and forth after a somewhat calm first half.
Yeah, I just thought they came out with a lot more purpose than we did, and that was kind of the opposite to how I thought it'd go. I thought we'd, done enough in the first half to look like we had control of the game. It only takes one worldie from them, doesn't it? But they never really looked like scoring, I didn't think. But then I think Allison played the ball straight to a Forest player, didn't they? And the ball came back, and he was obviously offside. But the way the crowd's up and loud, and they were loud and quite hostile all day. It still gets the blood racing a little bit. That Jota chance, I thought the way he shaped his body, to hit it in the far corner. I thought you're just expecting the net to burst, but he just hit it straight at the keeper, which is a bit of a disappointment. I just thought we didn't look awake. Everything was just a little bit sloppy again. The ball wasn't sticking with Jota. I thought some of the passing from Bobby was really sloppy as well. I just thought no one did particularly well. I thought Gomez was a little bit harshly treated. I thought the yellow card that he got, I didn't really think that there was anything in it. Yeah, he pushed him over, but so what? There was loads of stuff like that going on all game. I think it might have been a cumulative one where because so many fouls had gone since that he has to give a yellow card to someone. But I honestly thought the subs changed the game a little bit in our favour. I think after the subs, I think we looked like we had a little bit more purpose again, a bit more control of the game. And of course we got Ox spitting his dummy there, and I'm left wondering, do you actually think you played well there? Because that's not the same game I'm watching.
Yeah, it was a strange one from Ox. I don't think he was dreadful because the first half it was loads of nothing from either team. Because as soon as we went to the final third, it was like, nope, that's where we'll finish. But Ox and Naby tried stuff. I think Naby had a bit more come off, but Ox kind of crosses hitting the first man, etc. But at least he tried stuff. But yeah, not enough to have a tantrum over. But Hendrick, I'll come to you for the subs. It's 4 subs from Klopp because we have a brief glimpse into the version where we get 5 subs in the league and then he goes mental every game. But we have Diaz on for Oxlade-Chamberlain, Minamino on for Elliott, Keita on for Henderson on for Keita, I should say, and Thiago on for Fabinho. Some of them you probably think is just rotation with Fabinho, and I thought Keita played quite well. I've seen a few people say he played crap online. I was like, he's probably our best player. And then Elliott and Oxlade not having the best performances, so just to mix that. What did you make of the subs? Because I almost disagree with Horrocks there. I thought we kind of just went, well, we're not getting extra time one way or another this game. We're either scoring or letting one in. But yeah, I thought we lost control, but we seemed a bit more threatening.
Yeah, we lost control because we went to 2-man midfield and we put 4 up front, basically. It was almost like a weird 4-2-3-1, except Taki was playing really narrow on the right, which would be fine, except for the fact that Joe Gomez is not exactly a rampaging overlapper down that right-hand side. I was a bit surprised Bobby stayed on. I wasn't surprised Ox went off. I don't think he was dreadful, He certainly wasn't good, but he was better than Harvey. He was better than Jota. He was better than Bobby. But, Klopp decided to take off all three of the midfield, and you can't really argue with it. I mean, I thought, like you, I thought Naby played really well. I thought first half he was the best player on the pitch. And I think even Ian Doyle, who is notorious for giving Naby 4 out of 10, gave him 8 out of 10 for his first half display and rated him as the best player on the pitch. So when even Doyler sees it, I think it's pretty obvious. Henderson on for Fabinho, like Lisa Marie said earlier. I thought that one was one that might have been at the start. I thought he might have started Henderson and left Fab out. But the only surprise was that he took off Naby and left Bobby on. I thought when I saw the subs coming on, it would have been Diaz for Harvey, Taki for Bobby, Henderson for Fab, and Thiago for Ox. I thought that would have been the 4, and he would have left on Jota purely on the basis that he's the one that might get you a goal, and left on Naby because he was the only one really that was playing well other than Fab, who was an obvious one to come off just to keep him fresh. But Klopp doesn't want to take any risks. With Naby or Thiago, there will be no risks taken, because when we have one of them on the pitch, we will win. And as long as one of them starts every single game and the other can come on for them, we have a real chance of doing, the unspeakable and winning the quadruple this year, because they just make us so much better.
Duty as well. I'm guessing he's at Guinea duty.
I guess he is. I haven't really looked.
No.
Actually, is he? Unless it might be friendlies.
Guinea... I know Senegal play Egypt, don't they? But
yes,
there's no World Cup qualifier, but maybe a friendly.
They do. They have 2 games. They play South Africa in a friendly, and then they play Zambia also in a friendly. Neither of them are in Guinea. Both of them are away, which means extra travel, which isn't ideal at all. You'd wonder if we might hear tomorrow about 1 or 2 hamstring strains.
He's ill.
Yeah, I don't for one second have any want to see any of our players go and play international football. I'd rather have them all get injured. Play the game, get injured, or injured, quote unquote, in the warm down session or something, and all of a sudden, I'm sorry, he just can't go on international duty. They have to stay behind.
LFC Twitter account just shows him limping a bit, then he's running down the tunnel.
Just a picture of Naby. Just someone walk up and hand him a set of crutches, and he takes them and looks a bit bemused. Just take a picture and put it out there. Naby Keita leaves the City ground with use of crutches. And just say, sorry, Guinea, he can't go. Thiago can't go anywhere. Fab can't go anywhere.
Thiago didn't pick, I don't think.
Probably not. Luis Enrique is an idiot. But any of them that are important, I wouldn't be letting them go anywhere, because they're just too important to us.
Yeah, we did it with England, which was great. Thanks, Trent. But yeah, it was. I do agree. I think we made the subs that protected a couple players, as you say, and some needed the change up. My next note is Gomez and Van Dijk pissing about at the back. I think that was a Forest chance. Forest should score. Virgil went walkies into midfield. I think he tried to tackle someone and kind of got played around, but we didn't really react that well afterwards either. But Lisa Marie, I mean, they should score, but then we obviously go up the field. I mean, it's a range of emotions in a few minutes there.
It was definitely a roller coaster there, wasn't it? Down, up, down. And I missed a little bit of the build up to where Jota actually scored. I had kind of looked away, so I didn't quite see the build up for that. I mean, I did see the replay. So, the other thing I kind of made note was, we haven't really talked about, but Costas was kind of getting sloppier and sloppier as the game went on. I mean, he wasn't outstanding in the first half, but it just felt as though as the second half went on, he
kept shooting. First, he loved the shot.
Yeah, I mean, he was looking kind of making just even sloppy mistakes, even a little bit in defending as well, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. Yeah. So, and I mean, it all turned out okay. So there's no point in picking that apart. But he was not as sharp as he usually is when he comes on and plays. I think is probably just the biggest takeaway from it. We always. And maybe he was just due to not have a great game, but I would prefer that, he didn't do it at the same time as, 2 or 3 other players were also doing the same thing. So, absolutely. But no, it was. I mean, we gifted them a couple chances, and thank goodness they weren't able to take advantage of them.
Yeah, and then there was one big moment to finish the game, but we'll get to that, don't worry. Horrocks, yes, absolutely. Horrocks, I'll come to you. I mean, I will read you what my note actually says. Undelete my note about a goal because I thought it was offside. Simi to Jota, yes, 1-0. I mean, the camera angles at the City ground, I don't know how that works, but it looked offside on one and then it's onside clearly on the other. It's a mad camera angle they have there, but yeah, I'm sure everyone thought that was offside at first, but it's a hell of a finish from a player who was playing really bad, as we keep saying.
But he's just, again, I think I'm the only person who thinks this, but Jota's just got that Robbie Fowler kind of essence about him for me. I think it's probably his size and his stature and everything that kind of makes me think that. But he can not play well and just pop up with that goal. And it's not just about, he barely got his studs on it, did he? And just gets enough on it. But it's the positioning, it's the movement as well. And, again, Lee Dixon, same as you, absolutely called it as offside. And I'm like, but look at the grass lines. For me, it was obvious. You could see the grass lines. And the camera angle, yeah, he looked offside. But just basic physics. Where the camera angle was not in line with the players. So I thought it would be close. And actually, when they showed the lines, it didn't seem to be that close. We've seen closer, but it certainly wasn't as offside as it first appeared from the camera angles. But it seldom is.
Yeah. I mean, my first clue should be agreeing with Lee Dixon, I suppose. God. He was so boring.
I mean, I think it was on. So we scored about 79. It was 75 where they had that real chance down our left. And when the striker puts that wide of the post, I must admit, at that point, I'm thinking, okay, that was it. That was their chance. And I don't see them having as good a chance again.
No, and apart from the penalty shot, which we'll discuss him diving for in a minute. Yeah, and Hendrick, coming to you, I mean, it looked offside, clearly wasn't, but as Lisa Marie said earlier, Tsimikas had probably a bit of a sloppy game, but I guess it was COVID, because we just said illness, but people don't disappear with a cold nowadays, do they? But yeah, Tsimikas looking a tad sloppy, but cutting on his right foot, nice cross to Jota, nice finish, moments of quality off probably 2 disappointing performers, but a goal is a goal.
Yeah, that's exactly it. A goal is a goal, and that's all that really matters. And the thing with Costas is how little he's played recently. I mean, he was playing really well at the start of the season, and then Robbo obviously came back and has been full Robbo power for months now. So if I'm not mistaken, Costas played against Norwich, hasn't played since, so that's nearly 3 weeks. Before that, I'm struggling. Did he play Cardiff? Would that have been it?
Probably,
he did. Yeah. He played Cardiff. So basically, Costas has played 3 games now in 6 weeks.
He hasn't even had Greece games in between then.
That's it. And it's just like, it's a lot to ask of a lad to just be out in the cold, and then not even come, and then just come in and play one game. He didn't even play against Shrewsbury in the 3rd round. He might come off the bench. He did. He came off the bench, but he didn't get the start in that one. So he's just not been playing regularly. You can see when he gets the ball, he's got things he wants to do, and there's certain things he's very comfortable with. Him and Jota down that left isn't a partnership that really works all that well. Jota's not particularly good at that drop off, pick the ball up, spin, draw the defender, slip the return ball for the fullback that we've seen Mane do, as example, for years now. Mane does that with Robbo constantly. Picks the ball up, slips it behind the fullback, and Robbo's in. Mane does it well with Costas. We've seen Diaz starting to do that with Robbo as well. But it's not part of Jota's game. It's not something he does. He gets the ball, he wants to start driving in field. And Costas was making a number of runs first half and just not getting anywhere. I'd also give Costas a bit of leeway here. I thought Jed Spence was absolutely outstanding for them at right back. And he blocked every single cross or made it really difficult to get a decent cross in. And every time Costas was driving forward, he had Lolly chasing him, and then he was running into the wall with Spence. And Spence just stood him up and didn't jump in. I thought it was a really mature performance from the Forest fullback today. And I thought it just affected Costas, because if Spence had been rash and kind of jumped in, Costas is really good at just nicking the ball away and then slinging that cross in. And today he didn't get those opportunities. Defensively, Lolly's very quick. He's very direct. He's quite aggressive. Cost us some problems. Then Brennan Johnson moves across that side. He's lightning quick. And yet I thought Costas defensively did quite well. Obviously, on the ball, he wasn't as good as we'd expect. But I do think a lot of that is just rust. 3 games in 6 weeks. That's, and like you said, he's been out with this illness, and I like you, I'd assume it's COVID. I think that's the second time he's had it now. But it is just a bit of a big ask for him to come back in what was a fairly frantic game. Like, let's give Forest their credit here. They did give us a hell of a game. We didn't play close to the level we're capable of, but they gave us a really good test today. And for all the Arsenal fans,
Arsenal and Leicester, yeah.
That's exactly it. For all the Arsenal fans that are on social media crowing to Stephen about how we've gotten lucky again, Forest knocked ye out. Forest gave us a tougher game today than ye did in the middle of the week. Like, they actually should have scored a couple of goals. You didn't create anything, so hush. I think a lot of it has to be credit to them. Even the poor performance of certain Liverpool individuals. Bobby, Joe Worrell was brilliant today. Joe Worrell was voted man of the match. Now, it was obviously by Lee Dixon and Sam Matterface, who are a very, very strange combination of human beings. But Joe Worrell was outstanding today. Spence was outstanding. I thought the keeper had a good game for them. I thought Colback did fairly well dealing with Harvey in the first half. Their midfield worked really, really hard. The strikers were big and bustly and physical, and while they didn't threaten much, they did give Virgil and Ibu a tough enough time, just from a physicality point of view. Knocked both of them on their backsides a couple of times, and that's part and parcel of playing a lower league team in the cup. They're always going to get right up for it. That's the biggest game played at that ground in 20 years. Since whenever the last time they were going for promotion was. That's a massive game for them today. And Steve Cooper will have gotten right inside their heads and had them properly hyped for him. The result from our point of view is a couple of our players have poor games, sloppy games. But if you look at it objectively, it's in large part just because they played very, very well. They gave us a really big test today. Their energy didn't drop. They gave us absolute 95 minutes of absolute commitment, and we're pushing and trying to get an equaliser right till the end, and they did create a couple of decent chances in the game.
I'll ask other Dave this as well, but Hendrick, they should be a Premier League team, really, looking at that.
Yeah, I'd say if you look at their starting 11 today, they could do the new keeper. Horvat did well. I don't like Bryce Samba, who's the other keeper there.
He's mental, and I love him.
Spence is definitely a Premier League player. Worrell is a Premier League player. Colback probably isn't anymore, but was at his peak. Yates could play in the Premier League. I think Garner's a very bright and promising midfielder. McKenna, who would normally start, he's definitely a Premier League caliber centre-back. The other one who starts for them is, what's his name? They brought him in from Bournemouth. Steve Cook, he's garbage. He's not a Premier League player. But McKenna and Worrell and Spence out of the back five definitely are. Yates and Garner definitely are. Zinkerneckl could play in the Premier League, no problem. Brennan Johnson could play in the Premier League. Yes, he's on loan from Watford. Yeah, he's on loan from Watford. Yeah, they probably have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 Premier League players at the club. Now, unfortunately for them, 1 or 2 of them are in on loan. Well, 2, Spence and Zinkerneckl are in on loan. Mm-hmm. So, you know, they'd need to replace them or be able to extend those loans. But yeah, I mean, they're definitely good enough. When you look at their form, they started the season dreadfully, took like 1 point from the first 7 games. And since then, if you go back and look at their last 20, how many games they played in the I think they've played 37, 38 games. So over the last 31 games, they've actually been, I think, the second best team in the league behind Fulham.
Yeah, they said that in commentary, I think.
So that's a hell of a run, considering where they were as well. Like, dead on confidence, going nowhere, going down. They were going down.
Mm-hmm.
If under Chris Hughton, there was no doubt. They just looked horrendous. They looked completely lost. Cooper came in, no preseason, no time to mess about, just got straight to work, set them up properly, and they're a completely different team. And they are, since Cooper took over, they're probably the second best team in the division, not just on terms of form, but performance level as well. They've had a couple of games go against them where they played really well. So yeah, I'd love to see Forest back in the Premier League. I mean, they're a great historic club, and obviously, you know, there's history with us and them, and their fans, I thought, let themselves down with some of the always the victim nonsense today, especially considering their club have you know, sectioned off 97 seats, and for them the fans to act like that, it's a little bit weird. But you know, there's a lot to like about Forest as a club, and they have that tremendous history of having won 2 European Cups. And, you know, they've got the Brian Clough stand, which stares directly at the Peter Taylor stand. And those two men arrived in the 70s, took a champion, or well, the equivalent of a championship club, to back-to-back European Cups. I said this to you on Friday. It will be the equivalent of Steve Cooper taking them up this season, winning the Premier League next season, and then winning back-to-back Champions Leagues. Just imagine for 1 second how mental that would be. If that's what could happen. It won't happen. We know it won't happen, but that's basically what Clough and Taylor did there. And, you know, I'd always rather have one of the English clubs who've won European Cups in the top flight, because at the end of the day, I mean, Nottingham Forest are a bigger club than Man City.
Yes.
I tell you what, Brian Clough would have gone fucking mad at some of that shit the Forest fans were chanting today. He wouldn't have stood for it.
To be fair, wasn't Clough a bit like that? Didn't he say some stuff about Hillsborough? I may be misremembering.
He did, but he did, to my knowledge, he apologised late in his life, but he did make comments multiple times about things. But Dave is right, though. He would not have stood for that type of negativity from the crowd. His belief was that if you went to the game, you were there to support and cheer your team on. You weren't there to boo. You weren't there to jeer the opposition. You're there to support your team. And this is a man who once punched a pitch invader in the face.
Yep.
And then convinced the pitch invader that they should apologise to him.
And they did.
And they did on national television at a press conference. When he was getting slated, he brought this young man out, and this man apologised to him for going on his pitch. Cloughie was great. I mean, Clough always said, you know, my door is open. Players can come and speak to me if they think that I'm in the wrong somewhere. They're more than welcome to come and talk to me. We'll discuss it for a few minutes. We'll agree that I'm right, and then they'll go about their business. It's just a different breed. Absolutely different breed.
He did sound like a character, to be fair. Horrocks, I'll come to you. I mean, we've probably been about an hour now, so we've only got a couple more things to go through. The penalty to Forest. I mean, at first, I was thinking, ooh, looks like one. You see the replay. he's basically straddled the challenge or the arm from Allison, and then it is a dive, let's be honest. I think Roy Keane said in the punditry afterwards, if he was more clever, he probably could have won it, but that's probably the end of it, really. He just wasn't clever enough with it. Bit of a crap dive. Didn't get it.
I don't know how he could have been cleverer, though. I mean, the trouble is with some of these replays and some of the VAR decisions, it's as random as when we didn't have VAR, you know? So I see it, and it's obvious that he's dragged his
It's almost
foot
like the
down.
refs are the issue.
Yeah, oh, absolutely they are. So when it happens in real time, I think we're in trouble here. That looks like a penalty. And he does that thing that so many of the players do. I mean, fucking, that's Harry Kane. I know I keep going on about Harry Kane. It's a fucking penalty if that's him. So he's forced the contact, but because of like the movement of his legs, unless he puts his foot down to force the contact, he just runs right over Alisson's arm. So I don't know how he could be cleverer, because he has to make movement towards Alisson to force the contact. So yeah, in real time, thought it was nailed on penalty, but then you see it and you think, no, it's not. But then there's that uncertainty, isn't it? It's like, well, how is the ref going to see this? Who's in the stand, kind of thing. So yeah, I was relieved.
I don't even know who was on VAR. It could have been Stuart Atwell making up rules again.
Probably.
Who knows?
Yeah. Well, then it would have been a penalty, wouldn't it?
Exactly, that's true.
So that's the randomness, isn't it? Like I say, when you see the replay, you're thinking, I should be quite chilled at this point. But yeah, it was a big relief when it didn't come.
Yeah, Lisa Marie, I mean, just, you think at the time, crap. But you do see the replay, and it's definitely not a penalty.
Yeah, agreed. But it was, I was like, ooh, but they didn't call the goal offside on us. So was that our good luck VAR-wise for, this month?
The season?
But yeah. Yeah, or the season. And I absolutely agree with Dave Horrocks that, yes, if Harry Kane had done that, he probably would have been awarded 2 penalty kicks because, he's Harry Kane. But don't get me started on him. But yeah, but right, when you saw it slowed down in the replay, it absolutely wasn't a penalty, but I was crossing my fingers and hoping that they weren't going to be given that.
Yeah, and unfortunately weren't. But that's basically it for the game. I mean, one more thing before we go. Hendrick, I have to come to you. Then bringing on a random lad called Cafu, it's just great crack, I think.
So, I think there should be a rule. Like, do you remember when the whole John Flanagan nonsense to Scouse Cafu began? And it was just like, you're channeling the name of one of the great fullbacks for a fella with the footballing ability of an office desk. And this tree comes onto the pitch today with Cafu emblazoned on his shirt. Now, there should just be a rule that if you're going to go by the name of one of the great players, you should have to have a certain level of ability. Like, there should be an independent adjudicator so that when he decides he wants to go by the name Cafu, someone goes out and watches him play, and if he's not good enough, they just say no. Like, this fella's name is Carlos Miguel Ribeiro Diaz. There is absolutely no warranting of the name Cafu.
It's
not part of his name. No, he is a mule of a Ford who can also play up front. It's the same thing like with players that wear just their first name. Like, so Virgil, absolutely fine. No problem with him having Virgil on the back of his jersey. But for certain others, you're like, how are you going? Like, you're not, this is like people, shit musicians wanting to be Prince or Madonna or something. You're not good enough to go by one name only. And you're not good enough to go by such a name, especially when it's not part of your name. If it was his first name or his middle name or something, he'd have a case. But this is a nonsense, and I want this investigated. I want his family members brought up. Who has convinced him to do this? who has told him this is a good idea, who's ever told him he's good enough to go by this type of title. It bothers me. It really does. Guy's had one good season in his entire career. Get that off your jersey. Your name is Diaz, son.
You'd have thought he wouldn't want to be associated with Cafu unless you're on a proper elite level. Can you imagine, like, someone just turns up at the football ground, like, for a five-a-side, and it's like, "What's your name, mate?" "Oh, it's Maradona." "Oh, fucking hell, this guy must be mint," you know?
Yeah, that's
Shit.
exactly it. Like, lads just giving themselves nicknames to make themselves like. Maybe when he was like, I don't know, 8 or 9, back in Portugal, he played a bit of right back in his local team, and someone said he's our Cafu, and he's just taken, like, the people that when you're on a night out, there's always one idiot that starts singing songs, and he or she just cannot carry a tune at all. And you listen to him and you're thinking, what's happened here is when you were 6 or 7, whenever there was like a family function, you'd start singing and it'd be like strangling cats, and your granny or a nice aunt would go, "Oh, you've a lovely voice." And what they do is they do it to stop you singing and engage you in conversation, so you'd stop singing and destroying their eardrums. But those people would think back 20 years later on a night out and think, "Well, I remember my granny told me I was a good singer, so I'm going to have a song here." That's what's happened with this fella. Someone when he was 8 has said, "Oh, he plays like Cafu. He's quick, he's direct, he gets the ball, he runs down the wing." And he's thought, "Oh, that's it. That's me, Cafu." So he's rocked up at some point in his career and someone said, "Name," and he goes, "Cafu." They're like, "Right, what's your actual name?" "Oh, no, it is Cafu." So someone's written it down somewhere and it's been put in a newspaper somewhere, and then that's it. It's just run away with itself. But like I said, independent adjudicator, bring them in, interview the whole family, see if there's any kind of, I don't know what it would be. I don't know what sort of condition would you'd have to have, affliction you'd have to go by that name when you've got all the footballing ability, of a tree.
You have to be at least 25 to earn a nickname, I think. That's how we go with this.
But you've got to be at least a starter in a good team, not a bench player in a championship team to go with the name Cafu.
Hey, it's got him talking about him. It's got us talking about him. That's all that matters.
He's going to be doing keepy uppies on Britain's Got Talent, isn't he?
Yeah, be him and that weird fella from the F2 Freestylers. What's his name? The one that was at Arsenal. He thought he was the best player at the club.
Player. And then that got debunked as well.
Yeah, because it turned out when he was at Arsenal and he was 16, the Arsenal Invincibles were rocking around the place. Yeah, good lad. Jeremy or something, I think his
Jeremy
name
Lynch, is it? Or something?
Yeah, that's him.
Yeah.
It'd be him and Cafu on the next season of Britain's Got Talent.
Find someone called Roberto Carlos as well. You got a triple act there. Oh dear, but that's basically it for the game. I mean, Cafu had a chance. He kind of just blazed it over, and then Jota, and I know it had the worst shot in history. But that is basically it. But we'll finish up there. Does Hendrick or come to you anything you want to plug before we go?
Two-Footed Pod every day at 4 p.m. Daily Red every day around lunchtime. There will be a couple of Scouteds this week. There will be a couple of old schools coming up. I think we're going to try and do 3 across the next 2 weeks. And there are a couple of episodes of On the Books coming as well. Myself and Trev having a read about... Well, one book in particular will be a Brian Clough-related book. So, it's nice timing after this one. But yeah, that's it.
Lovely stuff. Horrocks, anything from you?
No, just delighted with the results. Ultimately, if we go on and win this thing, no one cares about this game. It's just job done. That's all it is. We didn't play particularly well. Forest played well and give us a bit of a game, but it's all about just getting the result onto the next one. And what a bunch of games we've got coming up. And I just can't wait. I've said it many times, but this does feel to me like 2001, where we were just having a final every few days. There was such a massive game coming up, and you're just thinking, I don't know how the squad can keep going, and then they do. So this season is unbelievable, and so I'm just happy, and particularly fighting City on 3 fronts now. I just want it to keep going as long as possible.
I did forget to get thoughts on Man City as well, but I'll maybe go back to you. Lisa Marie, any plugs from you and your thoughts on Man City in the next round?
Latest main AI pod is out, 1-2 Reds, and we've pretty much been keeping to a regular Friday schedule, so you can catch me with Trev and Cam on that. And Man City, I really wanted us to get Palace, but I guess we can't have it all. Yeah,
Well, they had to give City us because they were trying to give them Nottingham Forest because obviously lower league team, and we've just spoiled the party.
Yeah, we can't get lucky twice in a row, can we? So yeah, no, it's definitely April is going to be quite the month, and it might turn my hair gray, but that's okay.
Yeah, I'm just glad we didn't get Man City in the Champions League because I could not be dealing with April then because that would have been horrid.
Amen.
Yeah, that would have been horrid. But we'll finish up there. I mean, Dave Hendrick will go into on his other shows, and Horrocks, I assume, just said, "I wish it was Palace, but we got City." But that's it, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you, especially everyone who's been in the live chat contributing. Thank you. Goodbye.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.